Okay, this video is to help students understand music theory, written music. So I'm sure a lot of you know what the chord diagrams are. You relate things to the guitar. But if you have a piano or a keyboard, I would use that as a tool and then move everything over from the keyboard to the guitar. Because the way we think, at least in European philosophy, which is American philosophy of music, it's all based around a keyboard and the keys, the spacing. So on a piano, every key, white keys or black keys, are a half step. So if you started on middle C and you did not play any of the black keys and you played from C up to the next C, one octave, that is a major scale. Okay? On the guitar, every fret is a half step. So it's not laid out the same. On the piano, the black keys are actually pentatonic scale, which most people use in rock and roll and blues. So learning a pentatonic scale shape is great for the guitar, because if you take whatever the shape is that you're playing from, that position, those notes, and you move it up one fret, you can do the exact same fingering, but it's going to be in a different key. So when we say key, that's the term that means what's our home chord? What is the song based around? So I'm strumming an E chord here. Okay? So if we are in the key of E, we would play basically off of the tonality where the root, which is the name of the chord, the root of an E chord, is E. And then they use Roman numerals as you go up. So in E, the one chord is the root chord. They call it the one chord. If you went to the A chord, that's the four chord. Why? Because you count up from E, four-letter names, and you'll get to A. The B chord is the five chord, because it's five-letter names up from E. So whatever key you are playing in, the name of that key will be based off of the root, which is, like in a key of D, would be the D chord, is the one chord. So 1, 4, 5 are most of the progressions in the guitar and classical music and everything. So there's a tonality that we're just used to hearing from birth. If we are in India and go up someplace where it's microtonal, it would be a completely different tonality that we're used to. So I'm basing stuff off of the tonality that we have. So there's some terms that people use just to help explain it or to make sure that everybody's on the same page. So two of the terms would be time signature and key signature. And we're talking about written music, notation. Okay? So time signature looks like a fraction. So it'd be like 4, 4, for example. The top number, 4, tells you how many beats per measure. The bottom number tells you what gets a beat. So to notate or divide up rhythm, they have a little scheme where they put things into these little boxes called measures. And then this rhythmic pattern repeats. So you'll need to do a little investigating. There's tons of information out there, but a whole note would fill one measure. So it's like, a round note. I'm assuming that you know what the notes actually look like. Okay? Half note is like a whole note with a stem on it. You fill it in, it's a quarter note. So in 4/4, that means there's 4 quarter notes in the measure. It's how that rhythm comes across that makes it music. So, in my opinion, from studying from great classical musicians, there are 5 parameters to music if you wanted to break it down. Rhythm is the most important. Nothing happens, nothing moves through time without rhythm. The other 4 are pitch, color, articulation, dynamics. So pitch is like, what note are you playing? Okay? So with a chord, you're stacking up pitches to get the sound that you want from the chord, like the C chord. Dynamics is volume. How loud? How soft are you playing? Color is it an oboe? Is it a clarinet? On the guitar, it would be, are you playing back close to the bridge? Are you playing up towards the middle? If you're playing electric guitar, your tone knob and your volume knob control, or the same with your amp, they control 2 of the 5 parameters. Articulation is like a hammer-on, or a pull-off, or a slide. So the key here is, if you're learning a new song, try to incorporate those 5 parameters from the get-go, right from the start. So many people are really concerned about pitch, or am I playing the right note, the right way. And on the guitar, you can play the same note at different places. But I strongly suggest you go to a piano, or if you don't own a piano, you can envision one in your mind or just pull up a diagram, because the piano, as far as theory is concerned, will really help you to understand things, and you can move it over to the guitar. So there's different keys. They'll use that term key. So the key is like, what is the home base, the home chord of the song, the home pitch, so to speak. So there's key signatures. So a lot of times, if it's written music, over on the far left, they'll have what are called sharps, flats, or naturals. So you need to know what they look like. A sharp looks kind of like a hashtag. A flat has a particular, looks kind of like a B. The natural is a weird shape, but you can find this stuff online. The point is, a sharp in front of a note, written note, moves it 1/2 step higher. A flat moves it 1/2 step lower. A natural cancels out whatever happened as far as a sharp or flat in a previous measure. And then there's time signature, which shows you what the rhythm is, where the accents are in the music. So in 4/4, for example, it looks like a fraction, and that's not a fraction. The top number of a time signature tells you how many. The bottom number tells you what. So the top numbers in 4/4 means there's 4 beats in the measure. The bottom number is telling you quarter note gets a beat. 3/4 would be 3 beats in a measure, quarter note gets a beat. 3/8, 3 beats to a measure, eighth note gets a beat. 5/16, like in modern weird music, 5 beats in a measure, 16th note gets a beat. What's important is the accenting of the notes inside a measure. They are not equal. There is a flow to it. That's what gives it rhythm, that it's not just like a metronome or a robot counting out things. The first beat is the most, I don't want to say important, but it gets a little bit more of an accent or a little more emphasis behind it. Then it goes to the third beat, then the second beat, and the fourth. So it's kind of like 1, 2, 3, 4. And if I was going to count that or tap it on my guitar, it'd be like 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. There's a dance feel to it. There should be movement in rhythm. That's what makes the music happen. It's the difference between just being noise and music. So 3/4, it's kind of like descending. The first note is 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. Now those we're going to pretend are like quarter notes in 3/4. Every quarter note gets divided down into little subsections. And to cut a quarter note in half, if you're counting, like with a band or what they'll have you do in musicianship training, would be 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and. So inside your body, you should be feeling what they call these little subdivisions. And you can practice this stuff, and then eventually it's just second nature. Look, the great blues players, a lot of the great guitar players that aren't trained classically, they just feel this instinctively. It's just part of being a musician. But if you're trying to learn something new or you're a beginner, you might not be thinking about it the right way. And that's how to learn the instrument. And so if we go back to 4/4, and it's like 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. We break those quarter notes in half. Even if we're just playing quarter notes, in our body, in our mind, we should be thinking 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and. We break it down from eighth notes. We cut those guys in half. Now they're 16th notes, and they go 1 E and a 2 E and a 3 E and a 4 E and a 1 E and a 2 E and a 3 E and a 4 E and a. So those little subdivisions, you should like kind of feel them, internally. It doesn't mean you have to be playing. So that's a big deal of the 5 parameters of music, which are rhythm, pitch, color, articulation, dynamics. So if you're trying to learn a new piece, why waste time just figuring out the chord shapes and how to make the movement and then come back later and try to make it musical? I strongly suggest, and I learned this from Lucy Green, a great piano teacher who taught tons of great jazz players how to read music. They never knew, so it's like how to translate that through to playing. You want to incorporate everything at the same time. A wrong note, pitch, is not a big deal as long as the rhythm's going and everything around your performance is musical. So time signatures, they only usually notate those at the beginning of a piece unless they change, and then they will put in the new time signature and go back. Key signatures, have to deal with pitch, and pitch is one of the 5 parameters of music. So if we go to a piano and we take a C major scale, that means starting on the note C, that's labeled C. Remember, the pitches in European philosophy are labeled A, B, C, D, E, F, G, and then it just repeats, A, B, C, D, E, F, G. They just gave them these letter names. So there's also spaces in between some of those. But if you go to the piano, you will notice that if you're just playing the white keys, and we're going to start on middle C, C to D, there's a black key in between there. So C to D is what we call a whole step. D to E is also, there's a black key in between there. That's a whole step. If you look and see the white keys, as I'm looking right now on my piano, E to F, there is no black key in between. That is a half step. And then there's 3 more whole steps until you hit C. So a major scale, the sound of a major scale, is going to be whole step, half step, whole step, whole step, whole step, half step. So if you look at the piano, you'll see there's like 2 black keys, and then 3 black keys, and everything just like repeats, going both directions. So in the key of C, there are no sharps or flats unless we add them later. If we want to take that pattern of whole step, half step, whole step, whole step, whole step, half step, and start on any other key on the piano or pitch, on the guitar, then you have to rearrange, you have to bring in some of those black keys. So for example, I'm just going to use the key of D. The key of D, you start on that piano key. D to E is a whole step. E to F, that's a half step. So we got to add a sharp, which raises the pitch a half step. So that means you would be going from D to E to F sharp. And then F sharp to G, that gives you the half step that's in the right place. Remember, on the guitar, every fret is a half step. So it's all based around half steps. And every scale, if you learn certain scales on the guitar or certain patterns, they might apply to other keys. On the piano, every scale, the fingering is going to be different. So a key signature is either going to be like sharps or flats that are over to the left of the stave. They will be on every line of the stave, and they're just telling you what notes to play to be in that key based off of your home note. So the key of E will have 4 sharps in it because you're going to need 4 black keys like on the piano to make that spacing work out. The key of F will have 1 flat to get the spacing to work out. So you have to kind of like just think in your brain as far as a key signature. Why do we do them? Why do you need them? It's you're starting on a different place on the piano and ending on a different place, or on the guitar, but you want the intervals to be the same. So what is an interval? The interval is a term for the distance between two pitches. So the closest interval, the smallest space you could have, is like from one fret of the guitar to another. So E to F, that's a half step. If I went E up to F sharp, that is a whole step. 2 half steps equal 1 whole step. Kind of makes sense. So the intervallic spacing for, let's just say, a major scale is going to be the same no matter where we start. That's why we need to bring in sharps and flats to get that spacing to be the same. So whatever note we're starting on, if you take that letter name, like C, and we go up to D, that's a whole step. If we go, or a second, they will use 2 terms for it. Whole step is a second. Second meaning it's the second note. If we're counting from A, or well, starting with C, it would be C, D, E, F, G, A, B, and then C again. Okay? So a third, they use that term, that means you're skipping basically a note. So C to D to E, that's 3 letter names up, hence a third. C, D, E, F, C up to F, that's a fourth. C to G is a fifth. C up to A, a sixth. C up to B is a seventh because it's 7 letter names up. You go from C all the way up to the C above it, that's an octave. They just call it that way. I honestly don't know. Octaves probably because of 8. It's 8 notes. All right? So there's a terminology that you need to use, or that most people, who are serious musicians or classically trained, they know this terminology. It's not that difficult. It's how you wrap your brain around it, so to speak. So intervals is the distance between 2 pitches. How great that distance is, that gives you the term, whether it's a fifth, a fourth, or a third. So while we're talking about pitches, and pitch is just one of the 5 parameters of music, a chord is based off of the interval of thirds. So if we take an E major chord, okay, that's going to be an E here on the guitar. The next note is a B, okay. Then we have another E, we have a G sharp, we have a B, and we have an E. So the 3 notes of an E major chord are going to be E, G sharp, and B. They stack thirds up. If we make an E what they would call 7th chord, you're adding a D, which is 7 letter names up from E, if you count it up that way. So it has a particular sound. A 9th chord would be adding a note that's 9 letter names up. Okay? So chords are based off of thirds. If it's a major third and a minor third on top of it, that sound is a major chord. If it's a minor third and then a major third on top, we just swapped them, so I pick up my first finger, that's a minor chord. So the third of the chord is what determines whether it's major or a minor chord. Now most people, that just play guitar and stuff, you're just going to hear the difference, or somebody says, oh, it sounds sad because it's a minor chord. But you have to think about the chords, the thirds that are stacked up. Now, another term that they will use is tonic, dominant, and subdominant. Okay? So whatever key you're in, they will call that like the tonic, and then the dominant chord would be the 5 chord, the subdominant chord would be the 4 chord. So I'm throwing out terms here that you can Google up. But basically, key signatures and time signatures, they're just to keep a bunch of people playing together. When I play and stuff, I improvise a lot, or I'll have the music in my head, but the one thing that I make sure I always have is the rhythm. So pitch is important. It's what makes the song sound like it is. But there are only so many pitches. It's what you do with the pitch that makes it original or makes the music come to life. So that's where I'm going to come back to the 5 parameters of music, because you want to incorporate them. That's what makes it so that it sounds different. Rhythm, how you play a chord. Okay? So a rest is another term they'll use, and there's a shape for it, which I can't make with my hands, but you can, Google this stuff up, just music notation. A rest is when you don't play. It's silence. And I'm telling you right now, as a musician, the silence when you don't play is as important, if not more important, than the notes you play, especially having to do with rhythm. So just to start things that are so-called off the beat, you want to feel the rest. You want to feel that silence. Okay? So you can work on that in different ways, like things that are accented on 2 and 4 in your strumming pattern, or being able to shift the beat from, 1 and 3 are the most powerful beats in standard notation, but like rock and roll and blues, they shift it so it's 2 and 4. So it just gives it this drive and this momentum. So it's all the little nuances that you do around the basic chord shapes of the guitar, i.e. the 5 parameters of music, is what makes it special and cool. So when you're palm muting a guitar, I'm relating everything kind of here to guitar, but palm muting, if I just have that E going, and I'm going to bring my palm down and just lightly touch it, that changes what? The rhythm is there. It changes the color. We can hear the pitch, but it's just like a little off. I take away my palm and everything just starts ringing through. If we want to bring a rhythm out, I'm going to deaden the strings, and I'm tapping the guitar right now, but you really shouldn't hear it. If I just wanted to have the first beat of a 4/4, 2, 3, 4, 2. And a great exercise as far as your rhythm, take any chord that you want to play, or you're learning a new chord, and in your brain or out loud, you want to count like 1, 2, 3, 4, then 1, 2, and 3, and 4. You want to feel this. You want to feel those inner beats. Everything I've been talking about as far as rhythm right now is what they call straight time. You're dividing the pitches in half. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and. Now there's also shuffle beat. The time signature could be notated differently, but it would be 12/8. 12 beats in a measure, 8 note gets the beat. They divide that into groups of 4. Okay? So 12 beats in a measure, 8th note gets the beat. They're actually what we would call triplets. So if you take a quarter note and you divide it into 3 parts, 1, 2, 3, 2, 3, 3, they're just like little mini 3/4s. 1, 2, 3, 2, 2, 3, 3, 2, 3, 4, 2, 3. If we take the first 2 note values of those 3 triplets and we tie them together, then it becomes 1, dun, 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 long, short, long, short, long, short, long, short, long. You want to be able to go from straight time to shuffle time, no problem. You can do it anytime you want in a song, in your practicing, in your right hand. In the guitar, your picking hand is the money maker. It's what makes the music. The left hand controls stuff, controlling open strings and all that. That's more advanced stuff, how to like really use the left hand to control some of the 5 parameters of music, to bring out the rhythm, how you release the tension on the strings and all that stuff. But the shuffle beat, short, long, short, long, short, long, short, long. You want to be able to go from shuffle to straight time. So I think there's an exercise I have. But if you start the first fret of the 5th string and you just walk up and then you go to the next string, and this is straight time right here. 1 and 2 and I suggest you can sing the pitches to any of this stuff, it's going to help you in your ear training. But this little exercise. Now I'm in shuffle. Long, short, long, short, long, short, long, short, long. My timing should be right on. So shuffle beat is based off of groups of threes, like the blues, that kind of stuff. Straight time is where you're dividing everything in half. So just to recap here, because I'm looking, we're close to a half hour on this, if you can even get through this video. Pitch. There's certain terms you need to know, but think of a major scale, and I'm just saying major scale for now, is whole step, half step, whole step, whole step, whole step, half step. Then there's four other forms of scales or modes that they would call them. But to play in different keys, the reason you need the key signature, a grouping of sharps or flats that are going to be on the left of the printed music when you're singing, it's on every stave. That's to keep that spacing the same. And you'll need to have those sharps and flats to keep the spacing the same when you make chords. And what are chords? Chords are thirds that are stacked up on top of each other. On the guitar, you've got 6 strings. You only need 3 notes to make a chord, so some of those notes are doubled, like E chord. There's 3 E's. There are 2 B's and just 1 G sharp. E minor, pick up the first finger. Now it's just open G string, which makes it a minor sounding chord. So hopefully this will help some of you that are trying to learn notation and how it relates over. But making music in the end is the most important thing. I once wrote a paper when I was trying to get into the University of Pittsburgh, and I said the reason why theory is so stressed in the academic situation is because paid theory teachers are trying to keep themselves employed. And a lot of theory teachers, they try to analyze either classical music or new music or art music, what it would be called, and they try to give you all kinds of reasons why the guy wrote the piece. Well, you're never going to know. The only thing that a theorist can do as far as analyzing a piece of music that's already written is to try to use this notation to explain things. Like, well, he's in the key of E, so that means that A chord is a 4 chord. They just put labels on this stuff, which can help you as far as a player, especially if you're playing with other people in a band setting. Everybody wants to be on the same page, so that's why you need to learn some of this terminology. So if the guy says, hey, shuffle beat, E minor, blues, 12-bar blues, everybody knows exactly what that is. And they're all on the same page, and practice time is valuable. So learning how to use your practice time is extremely important. That you're not wasting time, that you divide it into sections. So if I have an hour to practice, and practicing at one setting for an hour is a long time. I would almost rather have beginners practice a half hour and then a half hour later, or 3 20-minute sessions. But you want to divide up whatever works best for you as far as practice time. So the first 15 minutes of an hour might be on technical stuff, just to get your chops down. I mean really analyzing, slowing everything down so that you know your fretting is perfect, that you're only exerting the energy that you need to fret the chord. It's a common thing. I do it all the time. I push down too hard on the strings, and that causes stress, tension. You want to be relaxed when you're playing. So 15 minutes may be technical stuff. I would take 15 minutes working on new songs. I might take 15 minutes working on improvisations or something like that. And then the last 15 minutes would be where I play the songs I know. That's performance mode. That's where, you're at Carnegie Hall in your brain and you don't stop. And you're totally in performance mode. There's only one way to learn to perform, and that's it. Shooting videos of yourself is a great way to do that. There's a little delete trash can there. I shoot videos of myself all the time. I delete probably 95% of them. But you can use it as a learning tool. But breaking down slow, playing and practicing ultra slow, where everything you know is perfect, it's very difficult to do rhythmically, and then everything will come together because you want to strive to be great. If you turn out to be good, that's really nice. Not everybody can play great. Not every time you play will you be great. But you're striving for that, and how you do that is to pay attention to all the little things in music. But as far as music theory, don't let it bog you down or slow you down. It's a tool that can help you relate written notation, like classical pieces like Bach or Beethoven or whoever, Bob Dylan. But if somebody writes that out, and so it's like written notation, how do you get that from the page to come out of your instrument? That's an art in itself. So you could spend 15 minutes of your practice time just on that, learning how to read and play at the same time, whether it be tablature or written musical notation. And I'm assuming that people know what tablature is, but instead of the staves where they show you the pitch orientation, it's the strings of the guitar, and they put the little numbers down to show you what to fret. Okay? And there's tons of people that try to learn the blues and country blues and all that stuff, and they're reading from tablature, and it never sounds right because they're just so concerned about that pitch, or that, oh my God, am I playing the wrong note, that they're not free and flowing as music should be. It's dance. There's movement to it, especially when you're counting. And you should be counting inside, like your body, your brain. You break everything down so there's a rhythmic flow. Now we're back to like 4/4. So in 4/4, if I'm in 4/4, I'm breaking everything down to like smaller little sections. I don't play it, but I feel it, and that's what makes the music happen. That's why if you hit a wrong note or something, you take a wrong turn in the piece, it just gets you through it. It's like a lead dog on the sled. It'll take you right where you want to go. Okay? So I hope this helps for anybody who views this, if you can even make it through this video. Later, guys.